Ahoy! Welcome to the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast with Phil Bender, where we help listeners navigate the uncharted waters of personal and professional growth. The Sea Captain Leadership Podcast is about sharing energizing stories of leadership development and the culture surrounding top-performing individuals and their businesses. We want to help you to take risks and build your vision by showing you how to break free of the boundaries that are holding you back. Today we have Gretchen Hydo, founder of Gretchen Hydo International, on the Sea Captain Way Leadership Podcast. Gretchen is a master certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, a certified mentor coach, keynote speaker, and trainer. Specializing in business, life, career, and coaches coaching, which is going to be really a unique part of today, actually coaching coaches. She helps people from all walks of life who are ready to make significant and substantial changes. Gretchen has spent nearly 20 years working hands-on with individual clients in notable companies. Before becoming a certified master coach, Gretchen launched and operated a successful public relations firm, Chatterbox PR Ink. She's a frequent speaker, trainer, and executive coach. Gretchen is also the author of the book, Break Free from Your Dirty Little Secret, a 10-stage secret breaking system to a new you. Welcome, Gretchen. Great to have you on the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to be with you, and we've been able to connect on a number of different items, including potential projects. But it's great to really get in depth with you today on your offering. So I think those that are involved today are going to see the depth and understanding, certainly the energy that you provide. And this is my first ever Sea Captain podcast on the road. If those of you can see me here, I'm actually in my son's apartment, so I get to see how the poor people live. I tease, but a young person living outside of New York City, you can only imagine. So hang in there with us on this primitive podcast. So Gretchen, being an instructor with the Life Purpose Institute and a mentor coach for the International Coaching Federation, you specialize in training coaches, and I think this is really an important place to start. It's so great to have a fellow coach on here. In fact, we both went through the Brown University coaching program. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved in coaching, and then in addition to that, how you sort of evolved into coaching coaches.
Such great questions. So I was a publicist before I was a coach. And I was in Texas helping a company with their PR campaign. And one of the execs said to me, Gretchen, you should be a business coach. You basically are acting as our business coach. And I thought, yeah, okay, maybe. Well, that week I went home, and one of the women that I mentor, because I do a lot of women's mentorship, she said to me, you should have been a therapist. And I was like, no, I am not going back to school for any of that. And that's not, I don't really want to do that. And she said, you should be a coach. And I thought, 2 times in 48 hours, what is coaching? And when I found out that it was really helping people get from where they are to where they want to go, I thought, wait a minute, I do this for free all day long anyway.
Right.
You mean I could turn this into paid opportunity? And so I went and I looked for like a very good coach training program. When I found out what it was, I thought, yeah, this is something that I should do. And that's when I became a coach.
It's interesting. I can go back to literally starting in financial services at 25, maybe even earlier than that. I was always someone that people would go to for advice. Okay. Now, whether my advice was good or not, that's a different conversation. But I was a person that people seemed to rely on there. And my dad, 40 years of youth coaching, he's in the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame. It was sort of ingrained. So I can appreciate what you're saying here about people coming to you and then you eventually evolving into, okay, maybe I ought to think about this as a
Yeah.
vocation, right? That's
Yeah.
really cool. So
Tell me what is a coach's coach?
Well, so this is so interesting, because I have my PR background. One of the things that I was really good at pretty straight away was getting publicity and getting written up in magazines. Well, LA Magazine coined me the coach's coach.
Hmm.
And I went with it. I was like, "Great. Yes, I will be the coach's coach." But here's really what it means today because it's 10 years later from that magazine article. A coach's coach is someone who specializes in working with coaches. And it's not the only people that I work with, but it is one of the markets where I live and breathe. And where I saw a need for this was, I went to coaching school. You and I went to one
Right.
of the same ones. I've been to other coaching schools as well. And coaching schools are wonderful at turning out great coaches and at turning out people that they really understand what coaching is, how to do it. But where there is a huge discrepancy is the gap on business development. Most coaches do not know how to earn a dime. They have a very, very hard time with client creation. They don't know where to find them, what to say, what to charge. And so it first just started that people from my class, the class that I was in, started hiring me because I was already getting clients. And then they told another coach and then another coach. And suddenly I had a roster of coaches. And then I created a program around it to really help coaches to be able to get to that first level of six figures. Well, I should say the first level is more like $10,000, but to a
Right.
livable level, to get to six figures because many coaches never really will earn more than 30 to 50 a year. And I don't think that that's right. I think that there should definitely be some business development. So that's how I became the coach's coach. And I have coached probably well over 1,000 coaches at this point in helping them with learning how to earn a sustainable living without being salesy, needy, creepy, and just the basics of business development.
Well, and I could probably use help on needy and creepy, but we did actually have you come in and do a session with our coaches, and I saw the firepower. So this is an easy one for anybody on this podcast today that is looking at enhancing their program. We provide great programs for coaches to plug in, but what you do is really get into the psychology behind this and the the business building and the
Yes.
confidence. And the other piece is the confidence piece, which I just think is a real add. Um, because and we saw it in the program we were part of. There were probably 20 people in our program, and some of them were corporate folks going through, just enhancing their offering as a manager or whatnot. There were others that really wanted to hang out their shingle, and it just kind of fell flat for a lot of them.
Yes.
Once they got out, because where do they go from here, right? And so I appreciate you doing all that. So let's talk a little bit more about uh, that training. Talk, maybe go into a little more depth about training to be a coach, and maybe even how they get to a point where they because I think it's effective not just for coaches but also for salespeople, for anybody who hangs out their
Yes.
shingle. How do you get people to help them in that space?
Well, I think that there's two parts of this. The first part is go out and get whatever training you need for your career. So if you want to be a coach, go to a coaching school. If you're some other kind of entrepreneur salesperson, make sure that you really understand the industry. The second part of that is always the business development piece. And to your point, not every coach is going to hang up their own shingle. Some of them are going to work for corporations, but the majority of them will hang up their own shingle. And so, if that's something that you want to do, learning the art of enrollment, everything from the first connection all the way through to the close of the client and then the coaching itself, there's a skill level that goes with it. We have to make sure that when we reach out that we're not just reaching out saying things like, "Hey, I'm thinking of you." No, nobody wants to even open that, or just checking in. These are the things that are very outdated. How do we connect? How do we serve? how do we offer experiences of coaching so that prospective clients understand what coaching is before deciding if it's something that they want to purchase? And also for the coach themselves, one of the turning points for coaches is when they audition the client rather than feeling like they're the ones being auditioned, staying out of your social self and stepping into your professional self. These are all things that I do with my coaches and my programs.
Okay, that's a big deal, and we're going to stay on that for a second because that was probably one of the best parts of what you offered us, and that is staying in that auditioning. Not auditioning, but really being selective. Maybe elaborate a little bit there. I think that's an awesome conversation.
I'm so happy to, because this is where it becomes a distinction. A lot of times for any entrepreneur, but we're talking about coaches, they get someone that possibly wants their services and they get really nervous. They shrink into social self, wanting to be liked, instead of professional self, which is someone who's willing to serve and ask provocative questions. And what happens is they become more worried about being liked and will this person choose me as their coach rather than putting on their professional hat and having their own requirements. And so, with all of my potential clients and with the coaches that I teach, I say you want to have requirements for your clients. And so, let's say that you're having a great conversation with a potential client and they want to ask you, well, what do you charge? Because that's what everybody's wondering is how
Sure.
much is this going to cost me? I like to slow it down and I'd say something like, let's say you had asked me, Phil, I'd say, Phil, well, I'm really glad that you're asking. First, though, before we even get there, I do have some requirements for all of my clients.
Right.
And that already is an energetic shift. That now, Phil, well, you're kind of on notice. You're being auditioned as much as you're thinking about, do I want to work with Gretchen? And so typically I have 3. And the first one is, are you ready? And what do I mean by ready? With everything else going on in a person's life, and the life is big, our plates are full. Sometimes there's a sick member of the family. Sometimes there is more caretaking that has to happen. Sometimes it's the perfect time. But are they ready to be able to put in the time that is going to need to be given to this process? Most people say to that one, yes, I was born ready. The second one is about their commitment level. So, are they committed to doing what it takes to get the result that they want? I can coach the heck out of anybody, but if they are not willing to do the follow through and the footwork and the change, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So the commitment one is where people have to think about it. And then the third is that I want to coach them. I gift it to them. It's actually just part of my requirements because I don't ever want there to be any confusion about what coaching with me is like. Coaching with someone else would be different, but this is what coaching with Gretchen is like. And in that, I'm auditioning them. I want to make sure that there's someone that's going to show up ready and prepared. Did they show up on time? Are they eager to be coached and are they coachable?
Yeah, that's big. And one of the things that I'm sure people are on this podcast are noticing is the confidence in how you share that. Okay, there's a, well, hang on, let's stop for a second. I have some requirements. Okay, right away you're flipping that conversation from you advertising what you do to it. You need to advertise to me that we're a fit. Okay, and then
That's it.
I'll let you know. It's not coming off arrogant or anything. It's coming off genuine because then you could follow up with the questions right after.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
yeah. Do you have any example just for fun? Do you have any examples of conversations that where you've had a success or maybe even something that didn't go quite the way you thought when you were starting?
Sure. I mean, all the time. I can remember when someone asked me my price. I went through the requirements. We coached. They asked the price. I told them, and like the woman screamed. That was interesting. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that is the best reaction I've ever received." And we laughed. And I got to tell her, it's okay if you have to work up to it. I am not the coach for everybody. I'm not everyone's first coach.
Oh, I love that. That was worth the whole podcast right there. Staying present for one, but then layering that in. I love that. I'm not everyone's first coach, so I can
Not
understand how.
everyone's first
So
coach.
good.
Yeah.
So
And
good.
and then not making their money story my money story. So remember,
Yeah.
people pay and invest in things that they find valuable. If in the beginning I was having a hard time with conversion, and what I realized is it's because I was going too fast
Mhm.
and my questions weren't deep enough. I wouldn't have known what the potential client's real vision was. What do they want and why does it matter right now? And so, for any coach listening, if you don't know the basics of what the client's potential vision is, what is it that they really want? You're not going to get any yeses. So, when I started to slow that down and really I could say back to them, okay, so I'm hearing your vision is, and give it back in that way. And if we coach together, we're going to work on your vision of X, Y, and Z. We're going to create a strategy to support that. And we're going to look at the blocks and the mindset that needs to shift so that you can have this very thing you're saying that you want.
Well, and this may be I was going to mention this earlier, but it might be a good time to interject. As you're going through all of that, uh, it the difference between therapy, coaching, and consulting. Okay, what are your thoughts on those differences now that you know what you know?
Well, yeah, therapy is all about recovery. It's recovering from the past. It's usually something that's pretty deep. Coaching is all about discovery. What can happen? Okay, these things did happen to you, but you're pretty much healed or ready to move forward from it. So, what are we discovering? And then consulting is telling. It's where a consultant comes, there's a certain problem, and the consultant is paid to solve it. So those are the key differences.
Yeah, and it was a really a good awareness for me, having really gone through all of those elements to understand that the recovery versus discovery.
Yeah.
Coaching involves the present. In other words, you assume that the client knows the answer, they're just not uh, taking the risk toward it potentially, right?
Mhm.
Whereas in
Mhm.
therapy, they may just not be aware of the answer for them.
Yeah.
And then of course the consulting is what you said. It's telling them what to do. So let me ask you a quick question here. This is which do you enjoy more, coaching or helping coaches?
It's both, because when I am coaching coaches, I call it like coach salting in a sense. We're going to do a lot of coaching and of course there's going to be some consulting because I do know what it is that the coach is trying to do with building their business. And I very much enjoy watching a coach have a big breakthrough, from coaching and then watching them get the wins from the consulting. And when I'm coaching people outside of coaches, I of course like that as well. Anytime that you can help someone get to their next level of success, and I don't just mean financial, but internal success, satisfaction, a light bulb moment, that's what makes it worth it.
It sure does. And I told somebody the other day that, as Sea Captain gets bigger and bigger, there'll be a day when I'll sell Sea Captain. There will never be a day where I quit coaching.
That's right.
And so that is the evolution of having a very clear mission. I cannot get enough out of hearing somebody's story and helping them put their puzzle together, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it does it's so important. And then if I can, as you have accomplished, educate those to follow that same path, and take the risk and do the proper business building, so that they can be sustainable in it. Boy, that's a powerful ad, and you do it so very well, just based upon the limited time we've been together. So
Thank you.
now, yeah. So Gretchen, let's take me out a few years. What's the vision for Gretchen Hydo from here? International.
Yeah, I have a few things. I'm going to keep helping these coaches with what it is that they're needing in business. I have a book that will be coming out at the end of the year for coaches called Stairway to Six From Client Connection to the Close. So that will be there.
Mhm.
The other vision too is to continue to help the really eager A-type personalities who have a little bit of a bias towards anxiety, on the inside and the ability to take action with what it is that comes next for them, telling the real truth, getting clear about where they fit, and taking a look at maybe anything that's outdated in their life, the rules, the labels, narratives, and beliefs that have been holding them in a cage. That's really where Gretchen Hydo is going.
I love it. Well, Gretchen Hydo, I can't tell you how much of a pleasure this was. And I'm sure there is a podcast viewer or listener out there that wants to try to contact you because of how you do what you do. I mean, we take on coaches, but you're really taking them through a training program that is
Yeah.
very valuable. So tell us a little bit about that, how people find you.
If you just go to GretchenHydo.com, you can get in touch with me there. You can look at the different programs, you can find my email, you can schedule 30 minutes. Everything about me can be found right there at that website.
Yeah, and we'll have it in the show notes, but that's Hydo.
Yes.
And so, Gretchen, I know our paths are going to continue to cross. We've discussed some potential projects. I so appreciate you being on today. This is Sea Captain Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for listening in.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Sea Captain Leadership Podcast. If you found the conversation valuable, please like, share, and post a review on your favorite podcast app. To learn more about Sea Captain and its high-performance coaching programs, visit us at seacaptaincoaching.com. The link is in the show notes. You can also follow us at Sea Captain Coaching on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening. Wishing you fair winds and a following sea on your journey.